As the wedding date approaches, my fiancé's first love returns to the country. They grew up together, innocent and carefree. Winston appeared at our wedding in a suit, holding Mary's hand. "May, let's elope," he said. I decided to step aside for them, taking over as the MC to warmly offer my blessings. Mary slapped her childhood friend across the face with the back of her hand, her eyes red as she demanded, "George, who are you giving me away to?" I rarely see Mary showing such a vulnerable expression. She panicked, even flustered, as she grabbed my hand. Her manicured nails dug into the back of my hand, leaving crescent-shaped marks of varying depths. Winston hadn't recovered yet. Covering his swollen cheek, he stared at Mary in disbelief. "May, you hit me for him?" Mary ignored him. I first gave Winston an apologetic smile. "Sorry, bro, May's on her period these days. If you wanted to stop the wedding, you should have done it earlier. Did you have to ruin the ceremony she spent 3 months meticulously planning?" Mary's voice rang out, her tone remarkably calm. "George, look at me. Don't you want to marry me? I've spent 6 years with her day and night, so I know all too well that she's angry." I didn't dare look at her, only answering with a smile. "Isn't this what you wanted?" Winston looked terrible, half of his face marred by bloody scratches from Mary, appearing quite ferocious. Lost in thought, I mused that he truly didn't deserve the celestial beauty Mary was today. Mary's tone softened as she suddenly asked, "So you don't want the land in the north of the city and the agreed monthly shares either?" "I do." I abruptly turned back, eagerly looking at her. No one would turn down money. This tragic male lead role really isn't for me. Tracing back to the origins of all these events, one cannot help but recall my first encounter with Mary. The heiress of the Mary family had always been the center of attention at school, while I was merely one among the ordinary masses. We met at the graduation ball. That night, she wore a red evening gown with her long hair elegantly pinned up, and simply standing there was enough to captivate the entire room. My few good-for-nothing friends were staring wide-eyed, and during the partner-seeking segment, they playfully pushed me forward with laughter. What a shame. Senior Winston didn't come. My half-reluctant, half-willing steps forward came to an abrupt halt. I had heard Winston's name from quite a few people before. Accompanying this name were accolades like piano prodigy and early fame, among other such praises. Many often remarked that I bore some resemblance to Mary's white moonlight, who had gone abroad. Perhaps the resemblance was indeed striking, for Mary spotted me in the crowd at first glance and gracefully made her way toward me. She carried a faint scent of alcohol, and as her slender fingers traced my face, I found myself growing somewhat lightheaded. She said, "Found you." Every young man dreams during high school of being a poor boy who latches onto a wealthy beauty to live a carefree and happy life. I didn't ask her who she had found, nor did she say whom she had mistaken me for. We naturally exchanged contact information. Mary is 2 years older than me, a mature and intellectual woman. She often resonates with me when talking about the hardships of entrepreneurship and has many unique insights into company operations. We talked a lot. I loved sharing amusing anecdotes from life with her, listening to her laugh or sigh, and then carefully considering things for me afterward. Like me, she prefers spicy food, enjoys playing badminton, and loves traveling to sightsee around the world. I didn't dare ask her face to face, only bringing it up over the phone. People often say I look like your childhood sweetheart. As someone involved, what do you think? There was a pause on her end before a soft laugh came through the receiver, sending my thoughts into disarray. She said, "You don't resemble anyone." Young and full of vigor, I easily developed feelings for such a like-minded woman at that time. 6 years of peaceful coexistence had made me somewhat complacent, and I nearly forgot that I was merely a stand-in for the white moonlight in her heart. My decision to concede wasn't made on a whim. 3 months ago, Winston returned from abroad, and 3 months ago, Mary mentioned wanting to hold a wedding with me. Our careers had just passed their growth phase, and Mary often said that once we got through this busy period, we would travel together to France, the place I had longed to visit throughout my student years. This wasn't the first time she had made promises to me. When I saw her laughing with someone else under the Eiffel Tower in her colleague's social media post, I felt an unusual calm in my heart. The man showing only half his face was someone I'd never met before, yet had always heard about. Winston is in Paris. At 11 o'clock at night, Mary returned from her business trip, dragging her suitcase, and hurried into the bathroom. The noise wasn't loud, but her phone charging on the nightstand buzzed incessantly. I turned over to look, intending to mute it for her. The screen's dim light tore through the darkness, painfully bright. Warm water boiling the moon. May, I'll be back in a few days. Can you come see me? Several consecutive pictures pushed that message out of view. Mary changed the password, so I couldn't unlock the phone. When she emerged, still damp from the shower, I was leaning against the headboard, staring blankly at the dessert Mary had brought back, which sat on the table. I don't like sweets, and neither does she. Who the dessert was for went without saying. I pointed to the phone placed nearby. Winston sent you a message. She froze for a brief moment, picked up the phone, replied to the message in a few taps, then casually tossed it aside and asked, "You didn't open it to look?" "No need to look," I said offhandedly. A grown man being so insecure sounds pretty melodramatic when you say it out loud. Mary looked at me, her eyes curved into crescents. I've always loved her eyes the most, large and spirited, gazing at you as if you're the only one who fills her heart and vision. She paused, then suddenly said to me, "George, what do you think about us having a marriage with an expiration date? Using a contractual marriage to make the other person jealous, then win them back. Am I also a part of your plan?" I wanted to laugh, but before I could voice the question, Mary brought up benefits again. Land and shares. The land in the northern part of the city is useless to her, but for me, it's a bridge connecting the interests of both sides. She knew I needed that project, a mutually beneficial scheme. This precarious relationship was forcibly propped up again. Mary looked at my barely concealed excitement and added, "After marriage, we won't interfere with each other's freedom." I agreed repeatedly. What's more important than making money? Next time we meet, I'll be shouting, "Boss is generous." As if she could read my thoughts, she smiled helplessly. "No need for boss, you're my husband." In the end, ours was just a marriage of convenience, a business alliance. Now that the real one has returned, it's only natural for me to step aside. However, basic contractual integrity should still be maintained, especially when the sponsor has repeatedly emphasized it. The guests below erupted into chaos. Winston stood there, completely devoid of the demeanor befitting a principal pianist. Taking pity on him, I handed over the host's cue card. "Take over hosting my wedding for me." Mary's eyes darkened slightly as she stared at Winston's livid face and calmly remarked, "Are you legally illiterate? Don't you know that disrupting someone else's wedding constitutes interference with marital freedom and violates criminal law? You should have snatched him away in private." I silently added in my heart. Mary glared at me with exasperation. Both the Mary and Winston families are prominent, well-known clans in City A. Whatever Winston does in the morning can be exaggerated and spread far and wide by the afternoon. Unfinished love, a wedding scene disrupted. I couldn't help but click my tongue in amazement. Such deep affection among the wealthy. The wedding ended late, with most of the guests already gone. While calling for a designated driver on my phone, I casually checked the constantly buzzing social media apps. The Winston family's PR team couldn't stop this trend either. Watching Winston gallop full speed ahead toward the tragic second male lead who loves but can't have his way, the situation only accelerated. My Weibo account gained tens of thousands of followers in no time. The netizens' insults were harsh, but they didn't stop me from making money. Gentle mushroom. Ugh, homewrecker. Shui Wenghua. Is your acting as scarce as your money? 111. Why isn't Mary coming out to respond? What a heartless woman. Your childhood sweetheart stayed pure for you, and you just got married in a flash. Carrying the completely drunk Mary on my shoulder, the more I scrolled down, the more indignant I felt, furiously typing a reply. Be cautious with words. I'm just a stand-in. You've already cursed her, so don't curse me too, okay? Mary leaned against my shoulder, blinking her bleary eyes with a complicated expression as she looked at me. You're utterly incorrigible. Mary had been drinking all night and finally couldn't hold it in anymore, vomiting messily while clutching my shoulder for support. Not that I'm incorrigible. I wiped the moisture from the corner of her lips and sighed softly. During the first 2 years of starting my business, I neglected my health. Drinking heavily and staying up late became routine, which eventually left me with a chronic stomach condition. Mary forbids me from drinking. She's always exceptionally meticulous about my health, yet remarkably careless in other aspects. Sitting in the car, I unusually refrained from chatting idly with her. She was utterly drunk, stubbornly staring at me as if I were a heartless scoundrel. Ahem, well, I'll handle the online issues. I stammered out a reply. Great, great, save some money. You don't care. Don't care about what? The PR expenses? I care about that. I glanced at her sideways. Mary couldn't withstand the effects of alcohol and drifted into a drowsy sleep. The road stretched long and dim, the delivery driver's helmet reflecting golden light. Warm air blew through the car, and that indescribable ache welled up in my heart. I'm not particularly sentimental, but if a person could simply discard all those romantic feelings at once, they wouldn't be human anymore. The car drove back to the marital home I shared with Mary. The house was purchased together, the decor chosen by her, with every corner personally overseen by Mary. Perhaps it was because our tastes were similar, or perhaps it was because her tastes aligned with Winston's. Before leaving, I added Winston on WeChat. Scrolling through the Moments feed, apart from the recent updates about returning to the country, Mary was indeed in France 3 months ago, together with Winston. Her warm breath brushed against my neck, yet a chill ran through my heart. The ring on my finger pressed uncomfortably. I laid her down on the sofa, took off the ring, and casually placed it on the coffee table. Mary drowsily opened her eyes, gave me a dazed smile, mumbled something incoherent, and fell back asleep. I leaned in closer to listen. She said, I found you. Found who? Found what? I sat beside her and picked up her phone. Mary's new password was the day of our wedding, also Winston's birthday. I told him he should have come earlier to stop the wedding. Then he could have had both love and career success, instead of watching me take Mary home with reddened eyes. Her phone buzzed incessantly. As newlyweds, I symbolically whispered to the sleeping Mary before unlocking the screen. Boiling the moon in warm water. May, are you really sure about this? Boiling the moon in warm water. He's just a substitute too. Why does he get to be with you when I can't? What nonsense. Warm water boiling moon. It's my first birthday after returning home. Won't you celebrate with me? I know you're not drunk. I glanced at Mary, who had already passed out, then looked at the note that kept switching between the name and typing. What a wishy-washy grown man. I scrolled up and finally saw the full context of that conversation. Warm water boils the moon. May, I'll be back in a few days. Can you come see me? I know you're getting married, but can you wait a little longer? Wait for me. Not the moon. No, how heartless. I gasped and came to a conclusion. Mary is a player. Why are you talking so much? Mary sat up drowsily, and my hand holding the phone trembled slightly. The scent of alcohol swept over us as her warm skin pressed against my back. Mary rubbed my fingertips with one hand and frowned, asking, Where's your ring? I frantically put down my phone to reach for the ring, but Mary was holding on tightly, and I was worried she might fall. After several attempts, I accidentally knocked the ring off the coffee table instead. I watched as it bounced under the TV stand and disappeared from sight. Mary let out a soft sigh in my ear. If you don't like this one, we can go pick another pair tomorrow. Her voice trailed off lightly, carrying an inexplicable hint of grievance. Mary was not the type of girl who liked to act spoiled, and I was certain she was completely drunk. I'm not Winston, I thought for a moment, then added, nor any other man. Drunk Mary was lively and straightforward. She looked at me earnestly and replied, I know you're not. You're my husband, and also the father of my child. Huh. WH. What child? I know I have a hat, but why is it so big? I turned to look at her, and Mary shook her head, smiling innocently. Not pregnant yet, just giving you a heads up to surprise you. What a huge surprise indeed. Mary rolled into my arms, her soft breathing sound whispering in my ear. I was completely stiff, while she remained blissfully unaware, sleeping soundly. At midnight, Mary's phone kept ringing incessantly. Half asleep, I heard Winston's voice choked with sobs, crying pitifully, his words fragmented. It was truly disturbing a peaceful sleep. Mary gently squeezed my palm, and then turned to leave the bedroom. 3:30 a.m. I remained in the same position until the bedding beside me grew completely cold, but Mary still hadn't returned. 4 a.m. I saw that ring-wearing hand in Winston's social media post. Warm water boils the moon. Those who can't hear the music think the dancers are crazy. Image. I was the one who put that ring on Mary's finger myself, not to mention the glimpse of half her face reflected in the glass coffee table in the photo. Her expression was unclear, but I imagine she must have been quite happy. Winston's 21st birthday. If not for so many unexpected incidents, they probably would have already been married by now. I thought somewhat wistfully. 6 years of feelings couldn't be casually discarded overnight, but since Mary didn't take it seriously, I naturally couldn't let myself sink too deep either. Mary didn't return all night, and I, stubborn as ever, stayed wide-eyed waiting the entire evening. She came back wearing a different outfit, looking sharp and efficient. I was sitting on the sofa when our eyes met directly. "You're back," I said. She nodded and leaned in with a smile, asking, "Did you miss me?" I didn't answer, reaching with my chopsticks to pick at the takeout that had gone cold on the dining table. She was on her period, and I had stomach problems. Mary stared at me with burning eyes, so I put down my chopsticks. This lose-lose situation was something I just couldn't bring myself to do. She bluntly called me out. "Stop beating around the bush. Get to the point. You went to celebrate Winston's birthday with him?" Mary clearly froze for a moment. She handed me the hot water she had just poured and filled her own cup halfway before slowly saying, "No, I was looking for someone and needed his help. Looking for that 185 centimeters male college student who's 3 centimeters shorter than me." She blinked her eyes and looked at me in confusion. I sighed inwardly. A repeat offender. Truly a player. Can't even remember which man he's dating. Mary hesitated to speak. I added, "The one in the white shirt who came to your office last week." Mary suffers from cold constitution and always needs to take some Chinese medicine for regulation before her menstrual period. That day, I happened to run into her with that scheming little brat while I was on my way to deliver the medicine to her. A plainly dressed male college student got into her car, the very car I had given her as a wedding gift, which I absolutely couldn't have mistaken. About 20 minutes later, the young man went in with a flushed face and came out pale. Mary spoke with unusual seriousness. "You're my husband. There's no one else." Bullshit. I stared at the ginger tea being offered to my lips. "You don't even remember I don't eat ginger." Mary pushed the cup closer. "It warms the stomach. Drink it nicely." I stared into her smiling eyes and downed 3 large cups in a row. Early the next morning, as the ginger taste lingered in my mouth, I decided to give Mary a little shock. Definitely not because of the ginger tea. A few days ago, when Mary's mother threw $5 million at me to leave her daughter, I thought I was dreaming. Has this unimaginable fortune finally come to me? Before you two get your marriage certificate, be smart and leave. I wanted to say my love for her is unbreakable. At least, the vow we made before was unbreakable. Not enough? Here's another $5 million. Her mother slapped the card down with a snap, then pulled it back with a pained expression, sighing at me for what felt like ages. I sighed in sync with her, mourning the lost $5 million. "George, I don't mean to be harsh, but you should lay low for a while. Winston's reputation is taking a hit, and I'm afraid he might come after you." I wanted to say I wasn't some naive, sweet romance novel heroine, until I turned around and saw someone outside cracking a whip as they drove toward us. "All right, Auntie, I appreciate the thought. I'll be on my way now." No sooner said than done. Using the $5 million as an excuse, I booked a flight that very day, packed my bags, and flew off to Paris overnight. Mary said she'd give me an explanation today and left for the office early. She attended several meetings in a row, while I thoughtfully covered the entire house with sticky notes. The handwriting was wild and flamboyant. Mary's first text after getting home was that she couldn't understand my chicken scratch handwriting. I can only say she has no taste in this regard. Not Moon. Where are you? Words. If the world were a group chat, I'd want to leave. IPG. Yin. Paris. Not you. You got cancer? Yin. Question mark. She called me on a video chat while I was lying on the beach, sipping juice and enjoying the sun. Mary's screen flickered as she glanced down at me between driving. Drinking cold stuff again? No. I pushed the iced juice out of the frame. What kind of illness? Stomach cancer or some other cancer? Can I even choose? Mary's expression gradually grew solemn, her voice trembling as she asked, "How many months left?" I told you to stop reading so many romance novels. Mary arrived faster than I had imagined. The clock had just struck midnight when she knocked on my door simultaneously. The cold moonlight fell upon her as Mary gave a weary smile and pulled out a thermos from her embrace. Don't leave me. Your stomach is sensitive. I'll make you plain congee. Sometimes I genuinely wonder if she's been possessed by some transmigrated woman. She arrived travel-worn, still dressed in the same suit she'd worn when leaving in the morning. I went inside to pour her some water. Mary stood at the entrance, staring at me intently. Want to ask something? I played with the cup in my hand, pretending to ask casually. Mary kept staring at me. You really don't have cancer? This matter won't be swept under the rug. I pulled up my medical reports from the past 6 months on my phone. She flipped through them page by page, more meticulously than she ever reviewed my graduation thesis. I stared blankly at the crown of her head, lost in thought. Is she worried about me? Suddenly dropping dead, and the company shares falling into someone else's hands? That won't do. Even if I die, they'd better carve it on my tombstone, my height included, so no one steps on my feet. It's not that I insist on emphasizing it, but I really am 188. Mary's hand holding the phone trembled slightly. She handed the phone back to me. Let's consider it an early honeymoon. Do you want to visit the Eiffel Tower tomorrow? I rubbed the rim of the cup, lowered my eyes, and nodded. Okay. The blunt knife hanging above our heads teeters on the edge of falling. I once thought we'd always passionately speak of love on unfamiliar streets. Now, I think we'll inevitably discuss tomorrow on some ordinary day. How many tomorrows do we two have left? Mary never lets people down. For several days in a row, she indeed turned off her notifications and joined me in doing meaningless activities. She is decisive and efficient in business, but she never turns the blade toward me. Mary is an exceedingly gentle person in life. If Winston hadn't suddenly returned to the country, I think I would have been quite content to live blindly with her. Walking under the moonlight, we embraced in front of the Eiffel Tower. The melodious sound of the piano was enchanting, and I tucked her stray hair behind her ear. I want to ask for a kiss from you. Mary saw through my intention, her lips curling into a faint smile. Does my husband need to inform me before doing such things? Her breath teased my senses. I held Mary and shared a lingering kiss with her. She gazed at me with dazed eyes, her crimson lips slightly smudged. Captivated, I leaned in to continue. The hem of my pants was gently tugged, snapping me out of my daze. I looked down to meet the eyes of a little blonde girl. Mister, buy a rose for your sister. Mary turned her head slightly with a hint of displeasure to look at her. The little girl exclaimed, You're the sister who came last time. Huh, did you change your mister this time? That bit of warmth vanished completely. Disgusting. I quickly covered my ears, pretending not to understand, and looked at Mary. I didn't get it. The little girl took out a photo from her pocket, comparing my face to the picture over and over, then suddenly turned around and hurried away. A face-blind kid, my great little helper in catching cheaters. Mary and I gazed at each other in silence. She suddenly asked, Do you want to know why I was in Paris 3 months ago? I didn't dare meet her eyes, missing Mary's clear, bright gaze. I figured we would have to talk eventually, perhaps on some ordinary afternoon, or maybe over dinner at night. I don't know how to bring it up. She truly is extraordinary, decisive, and ruthless. Before I could even sink into this beautiful dream, it had already vanished like flowers in a mirror or the moon reflected in water. The breakup anthem, Happy Breakup, blared in my head for 3 full rounds. I looked up at the sky, silently calculating how long the remaining 5 million could sustain my wallowing. As the city lights came on, I squinted at the people around me. Some were in love, some were gazing at the sea, while others were desperately digging tunnels with their toes to return home on the spot. Hurried footsteps approached from afar. The little girl had changed her outfit, wearing a pair of sunglasses and holding a bouquet of chilly flowers in her arms as she appeared before me. I waved my hand. Did she really think I was a fool, changing clothes to come out and scam me? Big brother, these flowers are from the sister next to you. She wants to wish you a happy wedding. Mary took the flowers and handed them to me. Domestic, your favorite brand. My eyes stung a bit, and I sneezed loudly while pushing the chilly flowers further away. Mary's face remained radiant under the lamplight. She smiled and said, I ordered it 3 months ago. George, happy wedding. Can we go home and talk? I nodded in a daze. Under the moon and sparse stars, I stared at the shadows on the ground where Mary and I merged indistinguishably, feeling an indescribable joy in my heart. This dreamlike state lasted until we entered the house. Shedding the glitz and bustle of the world, Mary closed the door and slowly changed into her slippers. The rhythmic sound of slippers dragging finally stopped beside me. I held the chilly flowers in my arms, sitting on the sofa, tears streaming down my face as I locked eyes with Mary. Mary placed the chilly flowers aside and leaned in closer, staring straight at me. I thought to myself, Mary often gazes at me with such directness, though most of the time, I manage to dodge her scrutiny. So you do realize you're always dodging me. Mary spoke with amusement. Me? She leaned in closer, her faint fragrance enveloping me completely, leaving me no room to retreat. I was all too familiar with Mary's scent. I had once complimented her woody fragrance, and it seemed she hadn't changed it in 6 years. Her cool hands cupped my face. I've been hoping you'd fall in love with me, and you're hoping I'd cheat. An overwhelming amount of information flooded my brain, which had been operating at 2G speed since the college entrance exams. Mary retaliated by pinching my face randomly, making my words come out muffled. She sat up straight, looking eager for knowledge. Don't you male CEOs all love that unrequited love, marriage before love drama? Bullshit. I was deeply shocked. Cut down on those romance novels. After some deliberation, she spoke again. Back in college, I suddenly could hear the voices in your heart. Mary pressed a finger to her lips. Some things I'd better not say. After my thoughts twisted and turned through countless loops, I felt the exhaustion of an 80-year-old man who'd spent the morning plowing fields under a scorching 38-degree sun, only to realize he'd been working on the wrong plot all along. My trembling hand reached out to interlace fingers with hers. So, did you know I can skip stones 15 times in a row? Mary nodded. And 5 three-pointers. A true soulmate. Mary lowered her eyes with a smile and whispered, if only I could have heard your voice sooner. It might have been even more wonderful. I chatted with Mary all night long, and by the wee hours, my lips were chapped from talking so much. I dragged her to become sworn sisters. Winston is just an old friend. I thought since he studied abroad in Paris, he might know some interesting things. Mary paused and shoved her phone screen in my face. On her Weibo homepage was a photo of us taken during our college years. A passionate kiss under the streetlight. Moon says it be discreet, you're unlike anyone else. Mary looked into my eyes and added, because I love you. The comment section exploded, and Winston's call came swiftly. I turned the tables and sang my victory song. Humming a tune, I answered the phone for Mary, crossing my legs as I asked, hey, what's up, Mr. Former White Moonlight? Winston paused on the other end, his voice hoarse and terrifying. Put May on the phone. She's asleep. I replied softly, watching Mary peel shrimp for me. You're just a stand-in too. I ate the food my wife had given me and replied indifferently. Oh, do you want to know what May came to me for on your wedding day? She asked me to help her find her high school sweetheart. She's already found him. No need to worry. Mary responded first. She raised her hand and hung up the phone. Winston on the other end said something hastily, but I didn't catch it. Mary buried her head in my shoulder. I rubbed the back of her neck and said, you've got quite a few substitutes, huh? That male college student who's 3 centimeters shorter than me. Is he also your substitute? She shook her head and said no. Only you, just you. Mary and I continued being lovey-dovey for another 2 months before I finally returned to the company after repeated reminders from my assistant. I entered the door with her, and her assistant, a young girl, pursed her lips, wearing a solemn expression. I was sure nothing good was coming, just as I was about to speak to Mary. The assistant looked at me and spoke with dramatic flair. It's been a long time since I've seen Miss Mary smile so happily. If you say so. Mary's eyes smiled as she lightly tapped the girl's forehead. Take your novel outside to read from now on. The girl stuck out her tongue playfully. By the way, Miss Mary, Mr. Winston has been looking for you lately. The little girl went to the receptionist to get the registration form, gave me a thumbs-up gesture, and then left. I took it, nodded at her, and slowly flipped through it. For an entire week, Winston came every single day, rain or shine, without fail. I clicked my tongue lightly, fully acknowledging his shameless persistence. Mary responded absent-mindedly, then turned back to ask me, "What do you want for lunch today?" This is a good question worth pondering. May. Winston walked in, his dazed eyes clearing slightly. The public opinion on Weibo kept changing, and it seemed he hadn't been doing well lately, completely losing the arrogant demeanor he had during our first meeting. Mary ignored him. I stepped in front of Mary and looked down at him. "What do you want?" Winston stubbornly stood on tiptoe to look at Mary. "May, there's a high school alumni gathering next week. By then, you'll finally know who the person you're looking for really is." I was momentarily stunned, feeling Mary's palm rest on my shoulder. "Huh, did she grow taller?" Mary paused. "Don't worry, I've decided you're my husband. It's not that I'm worried about that. It's just that I was ridiculously foolish in high school. I had a gang of followers who obeyed my every call, like the Monkey King ruling over Flower Fruit Mountain." Winston watched us being all lovey-dovey with a dark expression, and I could practically hear his teeth grinding. "Mary, you still need to stand on a stool to be with him." I turned around and saw Mary indeed standing on a stool, raising her hand to smile at me. I paused for a moment, then said, "Do you want to stand on a stool too? Just find someone about my height." Winston's face turned pale, then green. I wanted to see what other colors he could conjure up, but Mary urged me to go out for dinner. "I'll check it out next time." Taking advantage of the moment, I picked Mary up, bypassed Winston, and walked steadily out of the company. Mary's ankle was swollen and red. I took a pair of flat shoes from the car trunk and helped her change into them. "George, alumni reunions are mostly about showing off wealth. If you don't want to go, then don't." I bent down to fasten her seatbelt. "Let's go. Let's see what this former Mr. White Moonlight looks like." I paused, suddenly looking up at her. "You didn't pick me based on his appearance, did you?" Mary shook her head and answered seriously, "No." Mary's assistant is quite reliable when it comes to work, especially after Winston's remarks about how he could do it, but I couldn't, along with today's attempt to stir up trouble. His gentle and refined gentleman persona collapsed, and the scandal of him willingly becoming the other man stayed trending on Weibo for 3 days straight. It was worth Mary twisting her ankle to help me with the act. I truly admire Winston for still showing up at the class reunion despite his reputation hitting rock bottom. He must possess an incredibly strong mindset and an impressively thick skin. Mary held my arm, dressed in a plain long dress with her hair cascading down, exuding a gentle and charming aura, a style completely different from her usual self. Winston stared in awe, and I stepped in front of Mary. Before I could say a word, a few old high school buddies grabbed me by the neck and called out, "Big bro, long time no see, how have you been? Isn't this the legendary George?" Flamboyant handsome returns to the Jianghu. I waved my hand and spoke calmly under Mary's barely concealed amused gaze. "I haven't roamed the Jianghu for many years." Winston's kind expression shattered as he asked incredulously, "You're that bicycle-riding delinquent from high school?" "How can you call a Chinibu kid a delinquent?" I sighed inwardly at his lack of appreciation. Mary suddenly pointed at herself and asked me, "Do you still remember me?" A fish's tears are only known by the sea. I stared at her intently before asking in a trembling voice, "Are you that Tears of the fish from high school who dyed her hair purple and wore bodysuits while following me around every day?" Mary nodded with a meaningful smile that inexplicably made me feel uneasy. "We are sugar, sweet to the point of sorrow," she paused before continuing. "You're exactly the person I've been looking for. This White Moonlight reeks of non-mainstream vibes." I had a sudden enlightenment and nearly became a monk. A brother sighed lightly. "Bro George and Sister Mary, chopsticks paired with soup spoons. I always thought you two were perfect for each other." "Brother George, do you remember what you said before transferring schools?" I tried to stuff food into his mouth to shut him up. Mary replied with a smile, "Your servant withdraws, and this withdrawal lasts a lifetime. Youth is wasted on the young." The table was filled with laughter and cheerful banter. Winston's expression changed repeatedly as if he'd eaten something foul, before he finally stormed off in a huff. The class reunion lasted late into the night, with everyone taking turns sharing embarrassing stories. I locked eyes with Mary amidst the clamor, and tonight her smile was exceptionally radiant. I suspected Winston wouldn't let it go, but I never expected him to be this twisted. Of all creatures that would stay up late stalking me, besides mosquitoes, Winston is the first. It's no wonder he's named Winston, like a mosquito, utterly detestable. I woke up in the dim warehouse, the faint scent of blood lingering in the air, staring at Winston, who was hanging beside me over the chemical waste. "Have you finally lost it, you extremist fan?" When Mary rushed over, I was yawning while listening to Winston's lengthy monologue about his silent love and devotion for her. "Winston, what the hell are you doing?" Winston's eyes were completely bloodshot, his suit crumpled beyond recognition from the earlier struggle. I couldn't bear to witness his pathetic display any longer, shifting my gaze to Mary instead. Mary had arrived in haste, probably never expecting Winston to pull such a dirty trick, forcing her to choose between two options. Her expression kept shifting uncontrollably. Winston's usually rich voice came out hoarse and strained as he cried out, "Mary, didn't you ever care about me? Even just a little bit? I used to keep candy in my pocket because you loved it, waiting for you to come find me. I remember all the foods you liked, kept every object you cherished. Why? Why did you fall for someone like a poor boy?" The wind machine blew my body around wildly, but I still had the thought, I'm not poor anymore. Mary grew quiet, her expression calm as she looked at Winston. I'm not worried that she might soften up in the moment and actually make me a stepping stone for them to mend their relationship. Mary just got back from the dinner party and didn't even have time to change her clothes. She must be freezing. She pursed her lips. You know that was in the past. In high school, I was a little chubby, and you found me embarrassing, telling me to stay away from you. I told you I was being bullied, and you said it takes two to tango. Looking at her calm expression, my heart ached as if pricked by needles. Learned a couple of edgy phrases from George, and now they all call me first sister when they see me. Mary paused, then asked with a laugh, "What do you take me for? Some naive, pitiful heroine in a tragic romance, waiting for you, the heartbreaker?" Winston deflated like a punctured balloon, muttering apologies to her. Then suddenly, he lashed out, grabbing me as if to drag us both to destruction. The rope chafed my wrists painfully as I pulled on it with all my strength. Winston truly hadn't left himself an escape route. The liquid splashed when he fell into the iron barrel burned my skin with a searing pain. Amid the blaring sirens in the night, Mary rushed toward us with terror etched across her face. A sudden sense of weightlessness overcame me, and in the blink of an eye, I found myself elsewhere. The antiseptic smell in the hospital stung my head, and though my mind was still foggy, my body instinctively sat up and clutched Mary's hand tightly. "May, let's get married again." Her eyes reddened, and she instinctively agreed to me. I had originally planned to schedule this matter after everything settled down, but she cried so sorrowfully that day, and I could no longer hold back. Winston was brought to court for kidnapping, attempted murder, and attempting to force marriage on the involved party. Multiple convictions were punished concurrently, and the court tried the case for several months. When I saw him again in court, he had become skin and bones, hunched over with sunken eyes, coughing incessantly, no longer bearing the proud demeanor of a favored son of heaven. Winston complied with the initial trial. When the verdict was announced, he begged to see Mary one last time. I bluntly refused him. The last glimmer of light in Winston's eyes completely faded away. Does his rotting flesh and soul still deserve light? He said, "I'm sorry, I didn't protect her. No need anymore. Now, having me is enough for her." Watching the car carrying him drive away, I turned and headed to the jewelry store. Mary smiled radiantly as she showed me the couple's rings she had spent the whole morning selecting. "How do they look?" Two nearly identical diamond rings gleamed in her palm. I smiled and replied, "Excellent taste." Mary wrapped her arms around my neck, whispering intimately and tenderly, "Marrying you was my long-planned scheme." My heart stirred at her words. I lowered my head and kissed her lips, and Mary